First off, how you been, man? How's everything going? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Look, it's a little bit of a challenge to market a book in a pandemic, and on top of that, social unrest in the country. So, I mean, candidly, that's been challenging from the perspective of I was supposed to do all these events, and whether it's bookstores or speaking engagements, live stuff where people will buy X amount of books. But I'm listen in the context of what's going on. It's not a big deal, and I'm just going to soldier through and control what I can control.
Is it okay though that like maybe even better that it came out so people get to see it, read it, pick it up, and then when things do get a little bit better and we're back to normal, so to speak, you can go out there and really hit it as opposed to just waiting, right? I mean, would that have been better? I don't know. I don't think so. No.
It's a great question. I don't know, but I think you're right. I mean, in only less than a week, we have over 30 five-star reviews on Amazon. It's been number one in its category in meetings and presentations and communications and media. So obviously it's reaching an audience. I'm getting emails from people pretty much all over the world. Got one from South Africa, from Halifax, just in the last few days, of people that have really responded to the book and liked the message. So to your point, I think maybe if things do get back to quote unquote normal, either in the fall or even if it's next winter, that a lot of people have already read the book and may want to hear more about it.
Yeah. And it was great for me because obviously we're connected and, we've worked together for, I think now 15 years. So, as I read
Crazy.
this book and I read it and I see you, like I see, I'm like, that's Steve. Well, we went over this. He's told me this, like I've learned these
Right.
things. So it was
Right.
really cool to read it because I just have a connection with you. So I know, how you are. And I felt it, as you were writing this book. I mean, it was just pretty amazing though, to have all that stuff and get it out there. I thought it was great.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really, thank you for saying that, because any writer wants, I think, their personality to come out with their message so that the reader can almost hear that voice. For people who don't know me, they can at least get a sense of what I'm like. So I really appreciate that came across for you.
Yeah. Hey, so in all of our talks over the years, and then the biggest part of the book is the awe, the authority, warmth, and energy. And I know I've heard it from you all throughout. I don't know if I ever really heard that, and that how powerful that was for your kind of building block of all of this, and then all the examples that come from that. When did you develop like awe?
It's a good question. That I think it goes all the way back to when I was 29 years old and I first met this guy, Alfred Geller, which I talk about in the book. And he's so interested in all the granularity and the components of what makes someone a good communicator. And then I just decided to study that, whether it was voice or improv or acting or any kind of presentation. And over time, I took some of his terminology, which he didn't use awe, but he had some of the same concepts. And I think over time, just tried to build that into a very easy, memorable acronym. But it didn't come together until I started to write the book about 4 years ago. I didn't really think about, oh, that would be an acronym that people would be able to remember.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I mean, I've heard all the things that, most of it anyway, that you've talked about in the book, and it certainly helped me. And I appreciate you getting me in there too. I know that was great. I was like, I'm a real life example, which you have a lot of, which I think is important because then people can relate to that.
Well, I think you deserve to be in the book. I really do. And I'm glad that you are in there, because I do believe that you are, I don't know if the most, but certainly one of the most coachable people I've ever met in my life. And I think that speaks really well to your character and your personality. And that's why I wanted you in the book, because so much of people's improvement really never comes because they're not open to the idea of A, needing improvement, B, seeking out feedback, and then acting on it. And I just think it's really amazing how, in all the time I've known you, in all areas of your life, not just broadcasting, but just as a person, you really always wanted to improve yourself. And I've been inspired by that mindset. And so the idea of Don't Take Yes for an Answer, just the title of the book, really comes from having that mindset. And I think you're as good of an example of it as anyone I've ever known.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, but the thing about it is we're always still working on it. Like, I mean, I appreciate what you said, and being open to it is just the biggest thing for me because I still have a ways to go. I think we all do, but being open and seeing that different perspective, I think that's what really was the key. Like a lot of people, I don't know if they ever get that perspective, like you said, or even want to be better, like but you also want to come across with the authority. Like I said, something I'm still, of course, working on. I think we all are, but you got to have the perspective and see it first, right? I mean, just to even know it.
You do, and look, I remember a conversation I had with you probably almost 4 years ago, when Josh Santry left the agency, and you were thinking about maybe not staying with us, and we had some really tough conversations, and you pushed back really hard on me, and I give you a lot of credit for that. And I actually pushed back even harder on you on a few things, and a lot of people would have just told me to go screw myself and would have walked away, and you didn't. You actually, I think those tough conversations were probably some of the best conversations we've ever had, and I think that's a testament to you that A, you took it in such a constructive way and made some great improvements, and B, that I felt bizarrely, safe enough to be so brutally honest with you in certain things. And again, I think that there's very few people that would have handled those kinds of tough conversations the way you did, just to be open to that, and also to then take it and improve the way you have over these last few years.
Thanks. I mean, I think there's a couple things that we're on the same page with a lot of things we are, but one, as you said, like, you gotta look in the mirror too. I think that was the other thing that, a lot of people want to go out and blaming everybody else. And if this guy did this and this guy did that, the truth is, right, some people may never change. Some things may never change. If you don't do something to change yourself, you're going to be in that situation all the time. So I try to look at it from that perspective, like, okay, what am I not doing here or not giving you, something to work with, and then on the flip side, you just you gotta want to do it. You gotta want to be better. You gotta want to figure it out, and I think that's the most important thing.
I agree. It's look, change is hard, and you could have a great attitude and you could work on things and you could still not change to the extent that it's possible or that you're capable of, because change is hard and there's a lot of barriers to that. Some are psychological, some are physical, some are mental, etc. But you can't ever even have the hope of the possibility of any change whatsoever unless you're willing to try and willing to be open to someone else's feedback, and hopefully your own feedback, because you see it in yourself, the things you can improve upon.
That's the one thing I like a lot about you and the company and everybody is that you tell it to the person, how it is, because that's the point of your book. It's like everybody just wants to say, sure, it's great, or you're fine, or no answer, or no feedback is good feedback. And I think that's wrong, right? I mean, that doesn't
Yeah.
always necessarily mean that everything's okay. You're trying to come out and say, no, somebody has to tell you something, give you the hard truth. They recognize it, and then you'll actually do something about it. I think too many times we just sit back and go, oh, seems okay to me. Well, it might not be.
No, you're right. And it's funny because one of the stories in the book that I like to repeat is about Reed Pakula, a guy who works for us, who started off as an intern and was there a few months. It's about 3-4 years ago, and asked me how he was doing. And I said, oh, you're doing great. You're doing great. Everything's great. And he had heard my whole spiel, and he said, I'm not going to take that from you. I don't want to hear I'm doing great. What can I be doing better? And because of that, I gave him some feedback about his use of filler words, and he really improved his communication. And he's done very well with us as an agent now over these last 3 or 4 years, because he had the ability to say, no, I don't want to hear how great I'm doing. What else could I be doing better?
Yeah, no, I like that example because you told him to work on it. You were saying like or too much or like and he comes back. He's like, hey, how was I doing? You're like, not really much better. Like you gave him the hard truth. Like, no, try this.
Right, and then he improved dramatically.
Yeah. One thing I did a long time ago, actually, and I know you talk about this in the book of like recording yourself and hearing yourself in these conversations, which I think is huge. Is I asked like 12 people back in the day to tell me 3 things that they like about me but then also three things that they know about me that they think I don't know about myself. And it was really those where you get the improvement, you know. And so when I started to gather that up and I matched up a few together and I realized, this is a pattern here of like three or four people saying the same thing. And I loved it because that's almost like what you've done with trying to help people with this book. It's like explore and find out the possibilities of what other people are believing or thinking based on the way you're acting and perceiving, because you might not think it's being taken that way, but it could be.
Bingo. It's so true. Very well stated, because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters about your communication is how the other person perceives it. Nothing else matters. And understanding, the key to understanding that is seeing things from the outside in or from the opposite perspective. It's very hard. It's very hard for us to do that.
I did sales like back in the day with the radio station, and I thought of this too, and I certainly, as I read the book as well, I go, yep, this is exactly the example, and I wish we knew this earlier. Of course, you have to learn to get to that point, but we would go right in with our presentation and try to sell them on blank, and I realized later that that's so ridiculous and so counterproductive because it's not even what they might want. So now we would go in, have the entire conversation about what they do and what they're looking for, go back to the office, put the presentation together, and then go in and talk about it. Because then it's exactly what they wanted. And it'd be a little bit easier getting them to say yes based on that than them saying yes based on all the stuff that you're trying to spiel out. So listening, I don't know how much bigger you can make that. I mean, it's just listen, instead of coming in guns a-blazing right off the bat, which I used to do. I try not to do it anymore. I mean, that's a good example of that.
I agree with you. I would say, yes, you listen, and also ask questions. Ask questions. What do you really need? Why are you here? What can I do? I'm just giving you, again, metaphorical or parenthetical things to say. If you're a salesman, what's the problem here that I can solve for you? Or just ask questions and delve into what kind of car. Like, somebody walks into a showroom, instead of saying, hey, I want to sell you this, of course you would ask them, what are you looking for? What's the problem here? Well, I just had another kid and I need an SUV now, or I need a station wagon. Okay, now you can at least offer them something. You have a car, whatever you say, you're selling Chevys, you have a car that can solve that problem. But if you don't ask, maybe you're out there trying to sell a guy a sports car because he comes in alone and you don't realize he has 4 kids.
Right. Right. One thing I liked about another thing that I connected on too was later in the book, it was about, you said, deliver inconsistency. And I think as I'm reading it, I'm like, yep, another great example, because a lot of times you could be consistent, but in doing something that doesn't really resonate. Like when you say, hey, how you doing? You always say the same thing, like, I'm great. Everything's great. Like, well, it's really not. Now, I don't mean spew into your whole day and what's going on, but you mean vary things up, change it up. Let's not become stagnant and consistently boring or consistently predictable, So I thought that was really good.
Right. Well, I agree. And I think it also points to not just a sense of predictability, but a lack of authenticity. If you're responding to someone the exact same way with your phone answer or your greeting to someone, at some point, people are like, are you a robot? Like, you never have a bad day. I think I use this in the book. There's a guy I know who says, hey, how you doing? He always says, never had a bad day in my life. All right, come on. I know both his parents are unfortunately deceased. Never had a bad day in your life? Come on. Like, let's be real here a little bit. And I think if you feel that someone is being insincere and lacking authenticity, then you're not going to trust them. There's going to be less of a connection and less of a trust. I mean, that's kind of funny enough, but that's kind of the tag you would almost look at when you think about the bad connotation of a used car salesman. Hey, how you doing? Like somebody's selling you on something. We feel it and we recoil from it, even if it's subconsciously.
Hey, how proud of this are you to get all this out? I mean, I'm sure it took like a long time. You said probably 4 years ago you started doing this. I mean, what is the process, and how impressed and just proud you should feel for doing this? I think a lot. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't know, maybe this is not my best quality, but I don't have the greatest ability to smell the roses so much. So I do have to do that a little bit. Yeah, I mean, look, it's challenging to get, first of all your words out and to make a book that, not this that you want to read, but to try to really think about, is this something other people are going to want to read? Is it going to resonate with them? And ultimately, this is the kind of book that it's not a novel. So if it doesn't help you, then I wasted your time. And if it doesn't make you think in a way that's going to make some kind of a change in your life, then I have wasted your time. And I was very cognizant of that. But I don't know. I am proud, mostly because I think somewhere along the way, I learned something from other people, or many other people, and I was able to take it and package it in a way that I think simplifies some very complicated and important things, and hopefully make it very easy to learn, very actionable and memorable. And I do think that it will help a lot of people, and for that I'm most proud.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. I mean, I think so. I mean, not only because I know of the examples that we've worked on them together, but when you do read one or two or three, you think, I don't know how somebody wouldn't be able to say, wait a minute, that's kind of eye opening, because you give examples, you talk about it. I mean, and there's a lot of truth to it, you know, and once you're open to it, I think, you know, it'll hit a lot of people. And really, if you change what, 10, 20, 30, thousands, millions, I mean, you already know you're doing it. So it's like, it's a good feeling. It has to be.
No, it is. It's a great feeling, and it kind of amazes me that I feel like I walked into this little. They call it a white space, right? A white space, like no one else is in there. The white space that I think I'm in right now is this idea, as I know you read the book, this whole 15% of your success is correlated and causally related to how good you are at your job. But that leaves this giant 85% variable that is not related to how good you are at your job. And I think the way I interpret that data is that, yeah, it's really important to be good at your job. It's really important. But there are a lot of other people that are able to master that skill, whether it be dentistry or medicine or law or accounting or broadcasting, that have gotten on what I call the bell curve of good enough in the 15%. And then, you know, Mike, the whole academic system in America and probably the whole world is really dedicated towards just getting you better at the 15%. And it shocks me that there's so few, if any, resources being dedicated to teaching people metrics and language and skills around the 85% in an actionable way. And that's where I think the white space this book, you know, steps into.
No, I'm with you. And I don't even know if you probably think this or feel this too, but I mean, this isn't just a book for professionals or working or what you can do better with your job. Like I look at this as like skills and things that you should be doing anywhere, period. I mean, in your life, in your relationships, in talking with other people or friends, work. I mean, I hope people know that when they read this, like, yeah, it seems like it's tailored to the way it sounds for like a business thing. Like, no, I mean, all these examples and things you're talking about, you should be able to do this and it makes your life better, not just your job.
1,000%, 1,000%. It's great. I'm so glad you said that. You know, when you're marketing a book, you try to find the target audience, right? And I didn't want to be presumptuous to say, oh, this is the be all end all book of all books, and everybody on earth should read it. Well, of course, I do feel that way, and the way you describe it, that makes me really happy, because it's true. Even if you're, I think this book could help you in your marriage. It can help you in your relationships with your siblings, your friends, whoever. But you know, I wanted to be careful about not coming across, you know, frankly, arrogantly to say, you know, this is the Bible of all relationship books.
Right. Well, and you didn't have to. Like, you didn't have to. You're going to get that because people are going to read that and they're going to hopefully attribute it to the situations in their own life, you know, whether it is work or you're a parent not speaking to your kid the right way or not getting something out of them, or your friend or, you know, or a relative that you're trying to help change a little bit and you don't know why. It's like, well, you're talking too much, or you're being too high with your voice, or you're not listening, or, you know, I mean, there's like I said, I think it'll matriculate to the rest of everybody. But you're right. You can't come across like, well, this is forever, but it kind of is.
Right. Well, I'll let you say it. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad. I'm so happy that you took away that message, because, you know, in the back of my mind, when I'm writing this and thinking about it, I'm exactly thinking the way you're thinking. And it's funny because my wife has kind of called me on the carpet quite a bit in the last few months when I have failed in my awe skills at home. She'll say, "You're not following the directions in your own book," and then it's a good chance to have the reset, for me.
Well, that's what I mean, right? That's got to be tough now because you've laid all this stuff out. So you're held to such like a higher standard. I mean, I thought about it when I talked to who you also mentioned in the book, and then I've worked with through your advice, Ellie Miller, who does a great job as a voice coach, which I thought was huge in my development and can be for a lot of people's. But you gotta, I wonder if her or now you or everybody walks around life, like thinking too much about everything that's being done and said. Is it hard for you now because you hear all these conversations and it's stuff that you've talked about, or can you I don't say tune it out, but you know what I
No,
mean?
no, no. I think you're right. But here's one of the pieces of advice I try to give in the book, and I'll say it. Think about it like this, Mike. You've worked a lot on getting better at your craft, no doubt about it, and you have improved at your craft. But when the ball gets tipped off or when the ball gets kicked off and it's game time, and you're on the mic for ESPN and it's a game, I don't perceive that you're thinking about, oh, I'm talking too much or I'm not doing that. You're going to do the game and you're just going to go with the flow, so to speak. Another example I've used is Roger Federer practices how high he has to throw the ball up to hit the serve, and he's worked on it a million times. But on that tiebreaker in Wimbledon, when it's the second serve, he's not thinking, I better throw it up high, better throw it up high. He's just relying on his own learned skill and his good habits. And I think that's what I'm trying to say with people with their communication behavior. Practice, 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 and then let it go. You can't walk around self-conscious all day long, and nobody's perfect, so at least of all me, and that's okay. Nobody's perfect. All I've tried to do in this book is to get people to get a little bit better tomorrow than they were today, and also think about, there might be some really bad habits that you have, really bad, that are holding you back in a way that you're not seeing, but other people are. And if you could just eliminate those or minimize those, that alone will have a profoundly positive impact on your life and your career.
Mm-hmm. Agree with me or not on this, but I think with all the stuff that you mentioned and talk about, and you want to get out to tell people, it's like getting that golf lesson where you get
Yes.
14, 15 different things. And if you go out onto the course and do exactly what you just said, not to do, like think about every one of the 14 before you hit the ball, it's going into the woods. You got to work on one or two or three, right? Get proficient at that. That becomes second nature, then get to the next ones.
1,000%. I'll give you a good example of that. I play golf and I struggle and I sometimes fall into these bad habits. So just about a week ago, I found that I played, I couldn't hit the ball. I could not hit the ball. I was so frustrated. I lost about 10 balls, and I'm a pretty good golfer. 14 handicap, whatever. I'm certainly good enough. And anyway, I went back and I started watching these videos. This guy, George Gankis, he's a kind of a unique type of coach. And he gave this one piece of advice for people who are doing what I was doing. He said, just turn your hips back and forth. He said, practice in front of the mirror. Turn your hip this way, turn your hip that way, turn your hip this way, turn your hip that way. Just get very hippie, get that feeling of your hips rotating. And I'm doing it right now and I went out and played last weekend, and I shot 86, and I beat this guy on the 18th hole with an incredible birdie on the 18th hole, because the only thing I thought about the entire day, just move the hips, move the hips, move the hips. And whenever I wasn't swinging the golf club and I would be walking to the next shot or whatever it was, you could just picture me, I'm walking, and then doing this little kind of hip shimmy the whole time. And it just became second nature. And I played amazingly well. And I'm looking forward to playing again when there's time. But I didn't think about anything else, just that alone. And it made a profound difference. But I do think this is exactly what can happen in your communication life.
No, it's great. I mean, it absolutely right. And on the golf side of things, kind of almost from some of the stuff that I've learned over the years and with you guys, and when you read the things in your book, when I play golf now, I'm like slower with my swing. I don't grip the club as tight. And if I think of two things, It's those two things. And it's almost like what was hampering me sometimes in my life prior to that. Talk too fast, get too much out, do whatever, try to swing fast. Slow down. Don't grip it tight. Nice and easy. And amazingly, the ball and I've hit better. And I just keep that in my mind. Like, hey, Mike, you've got better, slowing down, saying less, not being in a hurry. Same thing on the golf course, right? Grip it too tight, swing too fast, boom, in the woods.
You're 100% right, Mike. Because look, here's the thing. Golf is a great metaphor, I think, for this whole communication thing, because you played golf. Your body knows how to hit the ball. You have this kind of muscle memory. You just can't. Sometimes you can't get out of your own way, and that's the problem more than anything else. And it's the same thing with communication. And if you just stop thinking, slow down. I was reading somewhere that Ben Hogan, when he would drive to the golf course, he would drive half the speed limit because he got himself in such a slow mindset. And, as I say, I watch these golf videos sometimes. One of the ones that really impressed me was this guy who talks about how, hold on. This guy talks about how when you think about moving the body rather than the hands, right? That the body moves 2.5 miles an hour when you swing the golf club. 2.5 miles an hour. Think about how slow that is.
Wow.
And yet the best golfers in the world are barely moving their body.
That's impressive. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. When you watch them, there isn't a lot of movement there too. And then when it is, it's not super fast. Yeah. The example of Hogan, I think, is a good one actually in life in general. We actually need to leave more time for things, right? Leave more time. So he probably has to leave himself double the time, obviously, to get to the course if he's going to drive that slow. But it's the mindset. I got to it takes me 15 minutes to get here. I leave 15 minutes. No, leave a half an hour. I'm trying to get better at that.
Yeah, it's true. And I was coaching a guy this morning, an executive, and he had some of the same issues that you've talked about and I've talked about and just getting him to slow down and to talk less and to stop. And we're only on our second week of working together, and he's just made such a profound difference in his life. And the best part about it is that he feels it. He feels it. And it's like in golf, when you hit that great shot, when you hit that crisp ball, or in baseball, if you hit the ball right, or tennis, any sport, you just feel it, it just feels right. And it's the same thing when you have a great game, it, or you make a great call, you just hit that winning basket in the right exact spot. After you get off that, come off the mic and you go back to the truck and talk to the guys, don't you felt it? No one has to say anything to you.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a really, really good feeling. And hopefully you're able to repeat that, once you get it done and you do it right, to not forget about how it felt like to do that. Hey, is there anything else you want to try to say about this? And, with this, I thought it was excellent, the book and everything that you've done to put this out. Just to kind of tell people maybe something they didn't already know or that you want to get out there.
I mean, I would just say to people that try to really understand that all of us have certain blind spots that we're not seeing about ourselves that are probably in our communication, that are probably hindering us from reaching our potential and having as much influence in the conversation with respect to getting promotions and getting clients and customers and retaining them. And so just invest in yourself. Just make an investment in yourself. This book it's on sale now for $27. If you don't want to make that investment, go online and go to my website, www.stevenherz.com, STEVENHERZ.com, and download the free 8-page authority prep guide. If you do nothing else, I think it would help you. And so, look, I wrote this book so people would benefit, and I know not everyone can afford it or will take that step. So that's why we put out the free guide. So encourage people that listen to this to do that.
Awesome. We will. And hey, thanks so much, man. I look forward to getting up there and seeing you again in person when we can get through all this. I know it's going to be a little while, but we'll do it. We'll make it work.
Me too, Mike. And you just keep it up, man. You're an inspiration, really. And I hope people read about you in the book and understand the kind of mindset and attitude you have. You really are one of a kind.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
man. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll
Great
see you
talking.
soon.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. See you soon. Thank you.